Hello again, friends! This is the second half of a two-part series where I talk about this shirt. This is a linen 18th century men's shirt, and in the first video I talk about cutting the fabric and the design process, and in this video I go through sewing the shirt itself. So stay tuned for more of that. I started sewing this by hand a few days after getting out of surgery. Was that a great decision? Questionable. I made a few hasty decisions while still perhaps not in the best frame of mind and on pain medication. But never mind that. Onwards! I begin here by sewing 2 pairs of running stitches all along the shoulder seam of my shirt sleeves. These will be used to create the gathers at the shoulder. I did 2 sets of the running stitches so that when it came time to sew them in, I could backstitch between them, more easily controlling the final look of the gathers. This is a trick, one of many tricks, that I learned from Vincent Briggs, who also now has a YouTube channel, so you should definitely check him out. With my gathering stitches in place, I pull my threads and set my gathers where I want them to sit. Once I've finagled them into place, I pin and then backstitch between the 2 sets of running stitches. Since this is a rectangular construction shirt, the sleeves aren't set like modern sleeves. Instead, you sew in the shoulders, add gussets underneath the arms, and then sew the sides of the sleeves together afterwards. Also, sorry for the questionable footage here. One of the perils of filming directly after surgery is less than ideal shots. Also less than ideal decision making, but that's life. With my sleeves placed, it's time for arm gussets. These are both fun and frustrating, as I always seem to manage to do one wrong, no matter how carefully I pin them ahead of time. But the moral of the story is, take your little square of fabric, sew it in to connect between the shirt body and the sleeves, and you have an arm gusset. Other people have done much handier explanations than I have, so I will leave the tutorials to the experts. Again, if you're looking for how-tos, I cannot recommend Vincent Briggs' blog enough. With my gussets in place, I sew the side seams and the sides of the sleeves in place. By this point, I was healed enough to use my sewing machine, and holy cow, it's a lot faster. The scary part, though, is nigh, for I must cut my neck hole and also the neck slit. I measure carefully, and then I measure again, and then finally I get up the gumption to snip in. This T-shaped hole is where the neck gussets and the collar will sit, and also my head. Before I get any further, I do a rolled hem on the neck slit to protect it, as it's the final edge, unlike the neck, which will support a collar. And yes, a rolled hem. I even succeeded. At this time, I also embark upon doing the neck slit reinforcements. This took me 3 attempts, but I am really happy with the result. I used 3-ply of embroidery floss, and did buttonhole stitches all around the outside of the bottom of the slit, and then created a bar of thread across the gap where I also added buttonhole stitches. Then I did some lace work between them, and this is actually what took a very long time. It's in some regards quite silly to have done because this is a part of the shirt that will not be seen very much, but it makes me really happy to have done it, and I think it really looks nice. Next are the neck gussets. Honestly, these are a pain. Getting the point to sit nicely was an absolute bear, and the final result isn't perfect, but it will do the job of reinforcing the strain of the pulling shirt. And it won't be highly visible. And now, finally, the gathering. Just like on the shoulders, I do 2 lines of gathering stitches across the back of the shirt as well as the front, and then I pull the bobbin thread to smush up my gathers. Then I pin the collar piece in place. When I'm happy with it, which takes a fair bit of fussing, I backstitch it into place by hand. Doing this part by hand, even though I do a lot of the rest of the construction on the machine, just gives me a lot better control. Now I repeat this process but on the cuffs. I left about 5 inches open on the bottom of the sleeves, so I hem that in first. But then it's just gathering and setting with pins just like before, and then backstitching in by hand. But wait, there's more! Unsurprisingly. I need buttons at the collar, so I grab a pile of ugly plastic buttons and work to cover them with scraps of my linen fabric so they'll match. I cover a total of 6 buttons. 2 will be for the collar. Brunley and Trowbridge has a good tutorial on how to make fabric covers for your buttons, so I will defer the explanation to them. With my 4 extra buttons that I covered, I decided to create little fabric mock cufflinks. Button cufflinks were period, and I just thought it would look nice to have them match the shirt itself. So I created little tiny fabric connectors and whip stitched everything together. And now the buttonholes. I measured everything like 6 times, as in the past my buttonholes have been less than successful. But this time I used 3-ply of embroidery floss and they worked like a charm. The first thing I did was I cut the buttonhole itself with a pair of embroidery scissors. Then I just did a quick whip stitch around with regular thread to hold the 2 pieces of fabric in place so they wouldn't shift around or unnecessarily fray. And then I did a buttonhole stitch all around the inside of my buttonhole. I have 2 buttonholes on each of my cuffs and 2 on my collar. And just like that, the shirt is complete. Just like I did for the pants video, I wanted to do a cost overview and kind of showcase a little bit the behind the scenes of what it takes to make costumes. So this shirt was actually fairly cost effective, and I actually bought most of the stuff. This fabric is a 50-50 linen cotton blend, and I got it on Mood Fabrics for $9.99 a yard. And I bought 2 yards of it for this project. And I used most of it, so I'm going to go ahead and call it the 2 yards. So that's $19.98, but let's round up. Let's call it an even 20. So $20 for fabric. And then the only other things that I used, since I used the fabric itself for the cufflinks and the buttons, is I guess you could incidentally call the buttons a cost, but they were just like essentially inheritance buttons. Someone's enormous jar of crappy plastic buttons. And then I used some thread and some embroidery floss, but not that much. So I think calling all of that $1 is fair. And so the total cost of this project is $21. And yeah, you probably could do it for a lot cheaper than that, depending on how you got your fabric. That's really the only cost here, is just the fabric itself. The pattern is just freely available online, and you just have to sort of adjust it to your own body, and that's it. So yeah, project overview. I really had a fun time making this project. It turned out really well. It's really satisfying to do the gathers. Like, it just feels so just, oh, you just get to sink your teeth into it. It was a really good project to do straight out of recovery from surgery, because a lot of it could be done by hand, just in a reclining chair, even if perhaps I ought to have waited. Yeah. Just a hint. Make your seam allowances the same throughout your piece. My first few seam allowances were just like random, like whatever I felt like doing. It became a little bit of a problem when it came time to do the armhole gussets, when my seam allowances didn't match up. So don't do that. Don't be like me. As much as I adore my poofy sleeves, I do actually plan on making maybe a more everyday version of this shirt with a lot less poof. I mean, I love the poof, but it is a little bit extra. So I probably will make a slightly less extra version of it in the future. The other thing that I kind of am tempted to do with this shirt, still like a little adjustment, is the way that the gathers sit, the shoulders kind of pull to the front. So I might kind of reset the collar actually and move more of the gathers to the back. This is something that I know someone else has done and it's been successful, so I might play around with that. Alright, that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, be queer and make stuff. Oh wait, P.S. If you want to see a video where I make little tiny adorable bow ties for the cats out of leftover scraps from this shirt, you can see it in one of these here links. I don't actually know how links work yet, so they're gonna be somewhere, but I'm not quite sure. And then I also made a video for the trousers that I'm wearing with this outfit, and you can see that also somewhere. And then if you want to be kept appraised of videos as they come up and other content that I make, then please hit subscribe. That's how you'll know fastest. Alright, bye guys.